Hello. How are we all doing this evening? All right, great. We're here. So I haven't heard back from anybody about who's going to be operating cams tonight. So we might be looking at Stompy, and that's okay because we love Stompy. But I do have some special topics prepared for tonight, seeing as it is coming up on Valentine's Day. But welcome everyone. Welcome to Bug Hunts. Welcome to our weekly search around the pasture to see what kind of invertebrate life we can find. Who's here? All right, Sam, Donkus, Flickmack, Lil Moped, Silvera, Alexis, Dan. I saw other Dan say he was here for his quarterly chats. Welcome. Casey, Fi Zombie, hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is, in fact, a little chilly again this week. So we will have to do our best and see what we come across this evening. Rebel? I'm assuming you meant mild, but you wrote milk crisis. And I really wasn't sure what that was. But losing your art gallery access from Google Wallet is definitely, I would call that more than a mild crisis. Sam has a question. Do the bugs get affected much by big temp swings? They can. So we've talked about it before, how there are like temperature cue systems that the insects use. We call them degree days, where for a certain number of days in a row, it needs to be above a certain temperature threshold, and that is usually something that signals to insects to emerge. And so if there is a span where they have enough time in a row of those warm days, and then we hit a cold snap again, they could be negatively impacted by that, as you know, they're not used to expecting those cold temperatures because they typically wait to emerge until after those sorts of things have passed. But the ones that are still out and active, you know, we have our trusty wild Hank cousins and millipede friends there that will be active year round, and those ones aren't affected nearly as much. But if there are these things that are typically not used to the cold, they are out then in the cold, they won't necessarily pass from it, but it does make flying a lot more difficult. Flying takes a lot of metabolic energy. So it takes like actual body heat and getting the muscles warmed up to be able to fly. So in cold mornings, a lot of the times you'll see butterflies or moths or bees even kind of perched up and sunning themselves in the morning, and that is physically to bring their body temperature up far enough so that they are able to fly. And that's one of the big things with temperature decreases. Insects sometimes won't be able to fly because they simply can't get warm enough with the weather. And if that extends for a couple of days, then they do end up going without food, and sometimes it is not an excellent outcome for them. But in general, they usually can tolerate a couple of colder days and be just fine with that. And look at that. We've got ourselves a spider. Ooh, interesting. This isn't a wolf spider. Sam, no, not this time. So this, I don't know that we've actually had one of these on here before. This is a, oh god, what are they called? It's a Gnaphocid. Gnaphocidae is the family. Ground spiders. So if you look at the back, if it stops moving, we get a little kind of zoom in there on the spinnerets if we can. I think Honeybee Helen is actually driving for us tonight, so thank you for that. They have these really short, thick, barrel-shaped spinnerets, as opposed to the wolf spiders that have kind of long and more spindly spinnerets. So here I will post that there for you. Nice and quick. Not making it easy. Oh, Ophelia's Call Spider. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, so I just posted the bug guide link to that family. There's a couple of different things in that group. I can't tell which specifically it is from these cam shots, but you'd also notice that we haven't gotten any eye shine. I don't know. I don't think they do, but I'm not positive. But I don't think Gnaphocids have that membrane in the back of their eye, that tapetum lucidum, that gives the wolf spiders their eye shine that we're so used to seeing on here. The thorax is definitely shiny on these guys, so there is some glint coming off of it, but I don't think the actual eyes have that same reflective property that we would see with wolf spiders. So that is one other way that you can tell. But those short, thick spinnerets, they almost look like a plug that you would put into an outlet. Yeah, that's a pretty good identifying characteristic for these guys. Neat. This is a new one. I don't think we've ever had one of these on before, at least not while I've been around. But very, very cool. How's everyone doing? Any cool bug sightings? Any cool bug finds this week? They made it look like a wolf. Merger, the house spider in my room, caught another stink bug. Excellent. Love to hear that. Well, Sin 112 found a gemming spider in the garage. Silvera has a spider on the ceiling. Excellent. Everyone seems to have some spider friends. I wasn't expecting too many updates from that. As it is at Alveus right now, and most parts of the US, but everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, it's pretty cold right now, so we're not expecting too much. Granny, you're really on that microscope, huh? So Granny said, gush about the new gadget at work. What will it allow you to do that you haven't been able to do in the past? So tomorrow, well, actually Monday, earlier this week, our lab got it's something like $87,000 microscope. And it's just been sitting in the imaging room that's right behind my office since Monday, unassembled. And unpacking it from the pallet that it showed up on was one of the most stressful things that I've ever done in my entire life, because who casually just has $87,000 worth of equipment sitting on a desk? And so, tomorrow, the guy from the company who we bought the microscope from is coming to install it, and we're getting trained on how to use it. And I'm very excited about it. It's they came to do a demonstration a couple of weeks ago, before we actually ordered it, and it is so incredibly high tech compared to what we're working with now. It's going to change a lot of things. So the big one is imaging. So right now, the process that we use, we have a regular DSLR camera on an electronic rail that we can set with a microcontroller, and it takes stack shot photos. So if you have a pinned insect specimen, you focus on the very top and you focus on the very bottom, and then you basically tell it how many slices you want in between. And this camera on the automatic rail will take, say 10 to 20 photos per specimen, focusing down each time a little bit so that the whole thing is in focus at one time after you stitch all those pictures together, using like computer software. So it gives you, instead of just being able to see the very top, you can see the top of the insect all the way down through the bottom of the legs, all in focus in one photo stack. And so we've been doing this for a long time. We've got like 3 different imaging systems right now. But this new one does it so fast. With our old systems, we have to set the external controllers of like where to focus the image. Then this external camera takes the photos and it goes click, takes the shot, and then goes moves down a little bit and does it again. And depending how tall your specimen is, that can take several minutes to work in just taking the photos. Then you have to drag all those photos into another program, and then that will stitch it all together, which takes another couple of minutes. That is to say that imaging a single insect specimen, with preparing it, getting it imaged, getting it stitched, putting it back, can take quite a long time, sometimes upwards of 30 to 40 minutes per specimen. This new microscope does it in maybe 30 seconds. It's a digital microscope, so it has a lot more focus that it's able to do, and because the camera unit is built into the microscope, it's able to make all of those calculations and all of those pictures really, really fast. And it comes with the software that you're using to control the microscope is the one that also stitches the photos together. So that is the big thing that's going to be very helpful for me as part of what I'm working on right now for my dissertation is a book chapter about ground beetles and taking photos of different characteristics, so people using the book later will be able to identify and like see what I'm talking about in the key that I wrote. Being able to do that quickly is going to change my life, really up my game, which is going to be super, super sick. And the other thing that is really, really interesting, that is going to be super cool for us, but probably doesn't seem like a huge deal to most people, is that the objective lens can rotate. So typically with insects, when you're documenting them of pinned specimens, you take a photo from the top down, and then you take a photo of the left hand side of the insect. So when you're looking at it, the head is to the left of the screen, the abdomen is to the right, and that is just like standard photography things for insect specimens. This thing, you can take the photo from the top, and then you basically pull a pin and you can rotate the whole camera system down to like 90 degrees. And so without having to reposition the specimen, we can take the top and the side photos basically all at the same time. Not like concurrently, but it's also going to save a ton of time in the process of taking these photos. So it's going to be very, very cool, and I'm quite excited for it. It also has, I think it's a 200x optical zoom, and my office microscope right now only goes up to like 100x. So that's also going to be great. A lot of the beetles that I work on are very, very tiny, and having something that's able to take really high quality images of stuff that small is also going to kind of be a game changer in helping identify stuff for the collection, help identify stuff for my dissertation work, and also just help all around. So yes, that is very, very exciting. That is our new technology that's happening at work. So I'll have to get my training tomorrow, and then throughout the next couple weeks I'll slap some bug photos in the bug Discord when we're done with it. I'm sure I'm going to be using this quite a lot. Like I said, it's right behind my office, so I can just sneak out my door and go into over there and take photos whenever I need to. So yeah, I'll definitely post some pictures in the Discord, in the bug Discord, if we haven't linked to that yet tonight. There it is. Feel free to join that. I hang out in there during the week between bug hunts. Some people ask questions, post pictures of their bug finds, suggest topics for future bug hunts. So we can definitely use that. We love the bug cord, and we're close to 1,000 people in there, I think. But yeah, so that's the big news there. I also have some other material prepared. Like I said at the very beginning, I do have some very lightly Valentine's Day themed things that we can chat about tonight. If we would like to move in that direction. The first one here being the very aptly named the love bug. So I just dropped another link in chat there to Plesia neartica, which is the scientific name for this little tiny march fly. Bibionidae is the family. And they are called the love bugs because basically anytime you see them, they are flying in copula. The males and the females will link up, start to mate, and then fly around connected butt to butt, basically forever. They're these little black and red flies, and there's a lot of... I'm shocked. Honeybee says, I love bugs. I'm glad you love bugs. Most people do not love bugs. They were first reported, or they were first described in 1940, which is like pretty late for something this ubiquitous and something this well known. And when they were first discovered, they were basically only reported from like Texas and Louisiana around the Gulf of Mexico in the southeastern United States. But then they started moving eastward, and now they are a huge thing in Florida. I did my undergrad in Florida in entomology, so I heard so much about love bugs. And being from the Northeast originally, I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what was going on. I just heard about, oh man, love bug season's coming on up. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Love bugs, love bugs. I'm like, what are you all talking about? And apparently what happens, and I can now attest to this firsthand because I lived it, in the spring, so like March and April-ish, and then usually again in the fall, so August, September-ish, October, all the love bugs come out and they start mating. And they don't bite, they don't sting. There's really not a problem with them and like the general concerns that people have with most bugs. But Bagel is on it there. They're on the front of every car. These love bug emergences are pretty high level, where there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these things that emerge, again, all at the same time. So when you're driving, you'll be driving through like clouds of them, and it's unavoidable. Because they're just found everywhere. They live in like damp grass clippings and stuff like that. So moist grass clippings is all of Florida. let me clear that up. So there's really no escaping them. So for those like 2 months in the fall and those 2 months in the spring, everybody's talking about love bug season. And the big problem with them that people have is that when they squish on the cars, if they're not cleaned up fast enough, the deterioration of the insect becomes acidic, and they can actually ruin your car paint. The females in particular, their eggs, like they've got something crazy, like 60% or more of their body weight is ovary or like egg holding to be able to reproduce. And when those squish onto the car, they do become slightly acidic, and then can in fact ruin car paint. I like the way you think there, Helen. Custom paint it. I agree. I agree. Drove through. I love hearing all of your anecdotes about the things that we talk about here. Rockstars drove through a storm of love bugs in a bass boat. It was unpleasant. I bet it was. And some of the other myths surrounding the love bugs, as they are a prevalent thing in Florida, and they only started showing up in real numbers in the southeastern U.S. in like the 1940s and 50s. There was a rumor that the University of Florida had somehow like X-ray zapped or genetically modified mosquitoes, and that's what love bugs are. And that is also why people thought that love bugs bit for a long time, but they don't. That's like blatantly false, completely untrue. Bibionidae, the family that love bugs are in, and mosquitoes are like very distantly related. They are not even close. They don't even really look that similar. So definitely no truth to that. However, aptly named love bugs because they are generally always found mating. And that is our first tie-in back to the wonderful holiday known as Valentine's Day, or Stompy's birthday, or Push Pop Reveal Day. Central Florida and love bugs, they even hang out all over people's homes. Yes. Bubbles, if the bug juice, sad, ruins car paint, can it harm your skin? It's not an on-contact thing. It's if it sits there and then the insides react with like the sun to get more acidic, from my understanding. If you squish them on you, it's not like a blister beetle where it's going to immediately start causing a reaction. I don't know anybody that's like painting love bug juice on their arm and like leaving it there. So I don't know. I kind of don't think so, but I really would not know that for sure. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, Ophelia, water boatman penis noises are not on the docket for tonight. That's another thing, plus World's Wildest has already covered that. Another bug guide link here showing damselflies in what is often called the wheel position. However, it's not super round. Doesn't really look like a wheel to me. I think these dragonflies or these damselflies, excuse me, are making a heart with their abdomens. And this is the wheel position is typical of how damselflies mate, and it's actually pretty strange how and why this is happening. So I'm posting the bug guide link. There is a photo there, so just so you can get reference of what I'm talking about. In this photo, there is a damselfly hanging onto the piece of grass on the left-hand side. And its abdomen is coming up, curling around, and grabbing behind the head of the other damselfly. And then the one whose head is being grabbed is linking back under to the base of the abdomen on the first dragonfly. Silvera, yes, it is stuck behind the other one's neck. So, it's getting a little freaky, but we're going to talk about what's happening here. So the one on top of this photo is the male damselfly. And his genital opening is at the tip of his very long abdomen. And so when he is creating a sperm packet to get ready to go mate, it does come out of the tip of the abdomen where you would expect the genitalia to be. However, they have secondary, or what they call accessory genitalia, up on the second segment of the abdomen. So in this picture, the bottom damselfly's abdomen is attached basically to the base of the, looks like the tail of the top damselfly. And that is because he has deposited a sperm packet basically on the underside of his second abdominal segment to put it in a different place for mating. Then he takes his clasper, which is a sexually dimorphic thing in damselflies. Males have it, females do not. And he will use that to actually grab behind the head of the female damselfly, which is what you're seeing here in this photo, and is like the first bump on like the top of the heart. Then, since she has, there's been some courtship, there is female choice in damselflies, so she does have to like select to mate with this one, which is good. There is some consensual relationships going on here. And so then she takes her long abdomen, curls it under herself, so her genital opening is also on the very tip of the abdomen. And she then connects with the secondary genitalia of the male and gets the sperm that way. This is even less tangentially related to Valentine's Day, just because these look like a heart as they're mating. But after they're done mating, the male will actually continue hanging onto the female's neck like this, and they will fly around in tandem, very similarly to the love bugs. I saw someone ask before we got off the love bugs, it was super terrific. Does one love bug always go forward and the other go backwards? When they're stuck together, do they switch up and each get a turn seeing where they're going? I don't know the answer to that. I would expect that the female is probably doing the leading, because the love bugs and these damselflies are doing what is called mate guarding. So if you're a male love bug and you mate with a female love bug, and you want to make sure that all of your genetics get passed down and that nobody else is being able to mate with the one that you just mated with, what a better way to do that than to never detach. It is physically impossible for another love bug to then mate with that female because you are still attached to the female that you mated with. That's a strategy, for sure. That's a choice. And like I said, I don't know. I'd imagine that most of the time the female is the one controlling where they're going, because she's going to be looking for sites to lay eggs. She's going to be going and looking for food. He is just latched on there to prevent anybody else from mating with the female that he just mated with. And damselflies do this to some extent too. So they actually mate in this wheel position, but then they don't fly around like this. You will oftentimes still see them connected to some extent. The male does keep grasping behind the head, because then he can fend off other males that try and come mate with the female. But she doesn't really... she can sort of control where they're going again, because she, again, is looking for places to lay the eggs of this male. But damselflies will also do male competition. So they will fight. Dragonflies and damselflies will both have multiple males competing for individual females. And part of the genitalia structure that I said was unique to males, the clasper, there's also sort of a scraper there. And I know that Allison has talked about this before, but it's always good to rehash, especially for the new people. If this is your first bug hunt, I'm sorry. Male dragonflies and damselflies will often have a scoop on the tip of their penis, and that is to essentially scoop the sperm out from any males that have mated with the female before. Again, in a sort of male-male competition for access to this female. They can scrape out all the sperm from the previous male and then leave theirs in. Then he will mate guard her for a long time, and if he ever gets fought off from the female or whatever, the other one will scoop it out and do the same thing. I don't know how it works in damselflies and dragonflies, 100% honestly, not really sure. But in some insects, they are able to actually store sperm from multiple males. So they won't always scrape all of it out, so she might still have some material from her previous matings, but then just the majority of it is from the most recent male. Damselflies and dragonflies generally look the same besides size. Any morphological difference that we don't usually notice. Do you mean... Courtney, do you mean between damselflies and dragonflies, like, as groups, or do you mean between male and female damselflies and dragonflies? Because the answer is that they are morphologically different in both of those cases. Sometimes. A lot of the time. While we're waiting for Courtney, I will answer Osprey's question. They're beetles that can change color, they're bugs that can change color. Yes. So they won't change color like a chameleon. That's not how it necessarily works. Well, for beetles, I guess I'll start with beetles to answer this question. They don't change color like that. But they can environmentally darken or lighten their elytra. So with the Western Hercules beetles, for instance, their elytra or their wing covers are typically like gray with little speckle spots all over them. But when you keep them as pets, and you have them in sort of like moist soil, the elytra turn like a dark brown, and that's simply because their exoskeletons are absorbing more humidity from being in a more humid environment. If you then take them out of the moist dirt and let them dry off, they go back to being their normal color. That is the only color changing in beetles that I can think about, or that's coming to mind right now. But other groups can do it. Definitely things like stick and leaf insects in particular, which are a type of stick insect, but they look more leafy than sticky. Those can, like, between molts, change color. So if they're on a green plant when they're born, they'll oftentimes come out green. But then if they move somewhere and they're mostly on like a kind of a yellow or brown plant, they can also change to that color. More often than not, they're going to be trying to match their color to one plant all the way through, but you can get sort of green to brown to yellow individuals of the same species depending on what color plant they're raised on. And you will also see this in crab spiders. So I'm sure if you've seen them, but if not, I can post pictures, taking notes there on what to post later. Crab spiders are the ones that kind of have their arms out to the sides, looking like they're looking for a hug, and they'll hang out on plants, and they'll grab bees, flies, butterflies, whatever they can get really access to on the flowers. And if you take individual like babies from the same egg sac and put them in a little housing unit with a pink flower and a white flower and a yellow flower, you can raise the same species to have different color forms depending on what type of flower and what color of flower that it is hunting on. So it is possible. It won't change instantly like a chameleon. Like I said, that's not really how bugs do, how they do that. Golden tortoise beetles actually can change color. I just remembered about that right now, but I don't know the mechanism. So usually it's not an instantaneous thing. The golden tortoise beetle, like I said, was an example that I just remembered. You can pick them up and they will change color, but I don't know how that happens. Typically, when insects go through color changes, it's like a life stage thing, so one molt to the next. It's not going to happen, overnight. Bagel, thanks for the links. Appreciate it. Okay, Courtney said dragonfly species all have similarities that make them dragonflies. The same with damselflies, but what makes them not the same? Okay, great question. You are asking how to separate damselflies and dragonflies as big groups. Damselflies, we'll start with them since I'd already sent the photo of them earlier. When they're at rest, their wings are held above the body. So the wings are together over the top of the body, like you see in that picture of the damselflies that I sent earlier. They also have a much wider head, so you can't really see that in the photos. But Cricket had one that he sent in to show and tell one time. Really phenomenal photo of a head-on of a damselfly, and they sort of look like hammerhead sharks. Damselflies have eyes on the very sides of the head, and there's a pretty large distance actually separating the eyes in the middle of the head on damselflies. Also, their front and their hind wings are basically the same size and shape. So again, in that photo that I sent, it looks like they have kind of one big wing, but actually they have two pairs of wings, like most insects do. but the front and the hind wing on both sides are basically the same size and shape. Dragonflies, on the other hand, live their life like they're T-posing. Dragonflies completely lack the ability to fold their wings at all, so they are having their wings out to the sides, like an airplane, basically, all the time. They will never have their wings back over the body or together like that at all. Dragonflies are also generally going to be a little bit beefier. Their abdomen is still long and skinny, but it's not nearly as thin as you would see with damselflies. So they have their wings out to the side all the time. The front wing is going to be a different shape, usually significantly narrower than the hind wing. So the hind wing is usually very, very broad, and the front wing is going to be more narrow than that. And again, you don't see that in the damselflies. Their wings are basically both the same. And then on the head, dragonflies have really, really, really large eyes, and they're basically connected in the middle of the forehead, if not separated by like a little tiny bit. Damselflies will have a much, much bigger space between the eyes than dragonflies will. And I will definitely post some side-by-side comparisons, because I know I have this from my general entomology lectures, separating those two in the bug Discord for later. They're both related, so they both belong to the order Odonata, which is a new one. We haven't probably talked about it much before, because we don't usually get them on the night cams. But Coleoptera is the order for beetles. Odonata is the order for dragonflies and damselflies. And it comes from don, like tooth, because they've got toothed mandibles. It's a really interesting system, but like the same Latin root that you get with like orthodontics and stuff like that, the don is the same in the order Odonata. They are closely related, but they are separate suborders within that then. Oh, Cricket, thanks. I'm still catching up on messages, but you've got both. You can post the bug Discord. That would be great. Oh, and QG answered my question for me through adding and removing water from its shell. That's great. So that's how the tortoise beetle that I was talking about earlier changes its color. Apparently it's through adding and removing water, probably hemolymph, like the blood, to the elytra. I can still look into that and post more links in the Discord later. Rebel, do moths and butterflies have similar wing distinctions when it comes to how they hold them? Yes, they do, but it's a lot less helpful. Dragonflies and damselflies, there's like one exception. There's a group called spread-wing damselflies that they don't hold them together over the body like traditional damselflies do, but they're also not totally straight out to the sides like you see with dragonflies. They're kind of like a lazy half cock in the middle. So spread-wing damselflies are the only ones that give you trouble for that. But generally, but again, very loose generally, butterflies will rest with their wings together like damselflies will, and moths will generally rest flat like a dragonfly. It is far less accurate in butterflies and moths than it is in damselflies and dragonflies. But that is one way that you could start to classify it. There's plenty of other differences that we could go into, but the J-Man, that's really funny. So going back to what did we do before emotes, man? This is great. The J-Man posted Dench for damselflies versus stare for dragonflies, and honestly, that's really, really accurate. Oh, yep, yes, we've also got airplane, damselflies can be zoomer. Yes, perfect. Emotes are so good. Catching up, catching up, catching up. Pengo Ray, odious tooth, apparently because they have teeth on their mandibles, although most insects have tooth mandibles. Yes, that is correct. All right. Mini lesson break there on dragonfly and damselfly anatomy. It was fun though. I like answering the questions that you all come up with during my planned segments. I like to have something prepared in case it's a slow night and we don't have much bug activity. So I like to have something kind of loaded up, ready to talk about. I like theming them. Like I said, tonight's loosely themed around Valentine's Day, but your questions are always more interesting because it usually stems from something that you are curious about, and I really like helping you satiate those curiosities. Worm. We had worm. I missed the worm totally. Oops. Oh, we're going back. Oh, heck yeah, we got a worm. Nice. Worms don't have exoskeletons, so, like, I don't know anything about them. But I think they're neat. But, okay. Ophelia's got a story. National Park, we had a building that was kind of light, dusty mint green. The moths in the area were normally adept to blending in with the whitish lichen and a perfect color mesh to the building. Oh, that's really interesting. So basically, Ophelia recreated the peppered moth story. That is one of the like most classical cases of phenological differences in insects. You've all probably heard about it in like your high school biology classes where there's this moth that was typically white to blend in with like lichen on trees in Europe. But then during the Industrial Revolution, where all of the ash and soot and whatnot from the factories was spewing out, the lichen would turn black. And the moths really switched what they looked like from white to black over several generations because the black ones on the... let me back up. This is not color changing in the same way that we were talking about earlier. Once an adult moth is that color, that is the color that it will be forever. But this moth, the peppered moth, came in two different color forms, a white form and a dark form. And when the lichen was exposed and the trees were mostly white, the white form performed better. It had an enhanced survivability from predators because it would blend in to the lichen on the trees. If you are on a white tree as a white moth, you blend in a lot better. If you are a dark moth on a light tree, you're going to be very, very visible to predators. But then, like I said, during the Industrial Revolution, when all of this soot and stuff was going out and there was a lot more darkness on the tree bark, the black color form all of a sudden started having a competitive advantage. And so the darker moths then were able to reproduce more because now the roles were reversed. The dark moth was blending into the lichen and the dirt and the soot on the trees, while the white color form would stick out more to predators. There's actually a really, really phenomenal book on this that I loved reading, called Of Moths and Men, Intrigue, Tragedy, and the Pepper Moth by Judith Hopper. It was published in 2002, and it's kind of like more background story to all of the peppered moth experiments. It's not fiction. It's more of like a historical recount and giving more context to all of the work and all of the thought that went into the pepper moth experiments, because typically people just hear about the one thing, like the little base covering that you get in Gen Bio. But it's actually a really cool story, and I highly recommend that book. I don't know if I have any control over Alveus Book Club, but I might suggest that to go on the wheel if other people will indulge me on doing that. We got worm, no exoskeletons. Silvera, no exoskeleton, no endoskeleton, no skeleton at all. Sort of. So you're right, they don't have an endoskeleton, and they don't have an exoskeleton. But they do have what we call a hydrostatic skeleton. And so, obviously, they need to be able to move, right? Like, we're watching this little worm do the worm, slither his little way across the hay bales here. And to be able to do that, they have the ability to basically push liquid from different parts of their body. Liquid, hydro, like water, hydro flask, that sort of thing. And static is like stasis or control, basically. So they have skeletons that exoskeletons, or not, it's not an exoskeleton. Back that up. Definitely wrong there. They do have the ability to control their movements, and it's through this thing called a hydrostatic skeleton. And that's something that you do see in insects as well. As adults, they have regular exoskeletons, but as larvae, thinking about specifically caterpillars are pretty juicy. They're thin and squishy, and they have typical insect exoskeleton material on the head with their head capsule and the mandibles and on the legs. But in order to control the rest of their body, they basically do hydraulics. So they also, caterpillars will also have what is referred to as a hydrostatic skeleton to be able to move using displacement of water pressure, basically, in their bodies. Similar about eastern gray squirrels. Two more scurrying black. The black are starting to do worse since they blend into with the road and they're hit more by cars. I'd never heard about that, Super Terrific. I'll have to look into that. Definitely possible. Oh, and Bagel also linked the book here. Appreciate y'all doing the legwork for me during chat chats. All right, caught up again. You want to hear more Valentine's Day thing? I've got like one more cool thing, and then we'll leave it at that for the evening, because we are getting close to the end of time here. I didn't quite realize that. Y'all ever heard of scorpion flies? That's a rhetorical question, because I'm pretty sure I talked about them last week. So scorpion flies is a really interesting term because it refers to a family specifically, but it also refers to a whole order of things, and I'm referring to the order right now. Within the order, you have these things called hanging flies. They are called hanging flies. This is perfect. I found the exact picture that I needed. So there's again the bug guide link to the specific photo that I'm going to be talking about. Hanging flies are really cool because they're basically praying mantises turned the wrong direction. Oh, donkey foot. So hanging flies will grab onto leaves or twigs like you're seeing in this photo, and then their hind legs are also very, very long. But the cool thing about it is, you know how praying mantises like have grabby arms up front? That's called a raptorial limb. Hanging flies have articulated feet, basically, on the hind legs that they use to grab things out of the air. So they hang there from their front legs, just dangling their back legs off of this plant, and then they can grab stuff with their hind feet. I think that's super cool. I would love to talk more about them later, maybe a future chat story. That would be pretty cool. But specifically with hanging flies, I wanted to talk about nuptial gifts. Valentine's Day is a great holiday for providing a present for those that you love. And sometimes that present can lead to some mating. You know, it happens across species. It's a pretty universal experience. So in this photo that I linked in the bug guide thing, here, again, for anyone that missed it, this is a male and female pair in copula, so they are mating. And that clump in the middle is a nuptial gift. The male will catch a piece of food, basically, and give it to the female as like a, here you go, here's a present, maybe we mate now. And this goes to another question that we talked about in the Discord. Somebody, I think it was Ospreys, asked about sexual cannibalism, and that is on the docket to talk about a different time. But this is like the same idea behind some spiders sacrificing themselves to the female. It's the same thought behind like why we think that praying mantises eat the males all the time, which doesn't happen all that often. But again, side tangent for today. Basically, if you're mating as an insect, you want your genetics to be passed on. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the female has enough energy, has enough food resources to be able to make and lay and get your eggs out into the world. So they provide the food. Hi, Mark. I see you lurking. So the male provides this food bundle to the female as an offering before they mate, like, hey, I really want to do this. Here's this morsel of food. Maybe we can get things going. But just like in the human world, some male hanging flies are shitty, and all they want is to get into the sex part without any of the actual interaction and thought that goes into giving a good nuptial gift. So, what some sleazy male hanging flies will do is, yeah, maybe they'll catch a little fly. But then they'll also grab some spider web maybe, or some debris, or some dirt, and they'll roll up a nuptial gift that is pretty small, but they'll wrap it in a way that it makes it look bigger. So instead of just showing up to your girlfriend's house with like the little I heart you candy hearts, you get those candy hearts and you put them in the big fancy chocolate box, right? That's what he's doing here, is he is deceptively trying to trick this female by providing what looks like a more plentiful food reward or a more plentiful nuptial gift so that she will mate with him. And so he gives her the bad gift, ends up getting to mate anyway, and it's just like a whole bad system, man. Like, it's sort of like sneaker males that we've talked about with dung beetles before. Different ways to like get around female choice and resource guarding and stuff like that in the insect world. But yeah, Bet you didn't think that bugs could be sleazy just like human men. But they can, yeah. So, giving a smaller gift disguised as a larger gift in order to secure mating access. That is something that occurs in the insect world and hopefully does not occur to any of you in the following days as we approach Valentine's Day, aka Stompy's birthday, aka Push Pop Reveal Day. Getting a sweater packed in a PS5 box. Mom, it's not the thought that counts. That's not how that works. Oh, God. All right. Well, it is just about time, but I do appreciate you all choosing to hang out and spend your Wednesday evenings with us. We found some cool stuff tonight. We saw a worm. That's sick. I don't know that we've seen them too many times. And then we found that Naphosid. I'll post a link about the ground spider in the bug cord. Exclamation point bug cord for those of you that have not joined yet. As I said at the beginning, I hang out in there during the week between streams. So if you have anything cool that you find throughout the week, you want to show off, you have bug questions throughout the week, you have suggestions for future chat topics, I would be happy to take them in there in the bug Discord after this. And I also, there's a new channel that was created for us that is basically the library. So I will go in and summarize what we talked about tonight in that specific channel. So if you have missed chats in the past, you can go back and see what we were talking about. And there is also all of the VODs on the YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and see, I did themed episodes right before Halloween, and I also did themed episodes right before Thanksgiving. So all of the chats and all of the bug hunts are on that YouTube channel. Feel free to go peruse them afterwards. Thank you all again for hanging out tonight. Thank you, honey, for driving the cameras this evening. And I will talk to you all next time. Have a good week. Have a good Valentine's Day.